I came to Fox Valley for the first time last year, and it quickly became one of my favorite places to ride and race. And the first Hare Scramble at Fox Valley of 2020 was definitely one I've been looking forward to. So, as usual, I am racing the Open C class, and there are 20 racers in the Open C class today. Now, this is the first race of this year where we've had transponder scoring, which is perfect for me because we get to see my exact lap time for each lap. And we get to see if I was speeding up, slowing down, or if I was all over the place. So, with all that being said, let's get into the action. Of course, bike didn't start first kick, and I am towards the back of the pack going into the woods here. We'll see in a couple of minutes why this was a problem, and actually today having a good start was key, especially on the first lap. It really gave a good advantage. But you can hear I'm revving and yelling. There's a slower rider ahead of me, and maybe I was a little bit too excited off the start here. I should have been looking for alternative lines around this guy to try and make a pass on him, but again, maybe just a little too excited, so that's why we have the yelling and revving. And I tried making a pass on this downhill here, but my line got cut off, and that added maybe just a little bit to the frustration. But it's okay. It's the start of the race here, and this guy actually right up here, he does pull around me, or he pulls over for me, and I do get around him. The track today at Fox Valley, it was awesome. The last time I did a hare scramble here was actually about a year ago, and I think I said that was one of the most fun tracks I've ever raced. And this track today definitely contested that. The lap times were very short. It was a short loop. Us C guys were doing around 9 to 10 minute laps, so a short track, but regardless, it was a ton of fun. And you'll see here off the start, I felt like I was riding very well. I was riding with a lot of confidence, and that might be in part because I've been riding these trails. I'm getting used to what these trails have to offer, but also I just had confidence and I was excited for this race going into it. So that translated into me riding very well, and I would say I rode really well for at least the first half of the race before I started to get a little bit worn out and died down. And hey, look at what we have here. You'll know if you've been keeping up with my videos that I've been practicing this section quite a bit. I knew that this would be in hare scrambles coming this year, so I've been practicing it, and for that reason, I have no idea why I just messed up in that section back there where there's the two lines, but I slowed down a little bit, but it's fine. Once we move in here, you'll see I'm speeding up, I'm riding with confidence, and honestly, I was having a ton of fun. This was actually probably some of the most fun I've had racing in a long time, at least in the last year or maybe even more. You'll see I caught up to this guy. I don't think he's in the Open C class. I think he's maybe a 30 plus rider. But regardless, a battle's a battle. I do catch up to him, and he does end up pulling over, so I say thank you. Whenever someone pulls over for you, especially in a race, it's kind of just a courtesy thing because technically they don't have to. But now, here's where things get interesting. So we come on the motocross track, and then we get off the motocross track, and there's this uphill, and it's a mess. We're not even looking at most of the problematic areas here. This is just a couple of riders. This clears out, or I thought it cleared out, so we start going up the hill, and this is when the chaos comes in. There's 3 lines up the hill, and every line is blocked. And then this guy was backing up. He's a light sea rider based on his bike and everything. It looks like a YZ125. He was backing into me, so I was just yelling and saying, "Hey, I'm here." He can't really back up, but I come up to next to this guy to my right. He is in the open sea class, and actually a lot of these guys here are in the open sea class. And we set up shop because really all these lines are blocked, so there's not really much we can do. So in this bottleneck, there's at least 13 open sea riders based on just the lap 1 scoring. All of the light sea riders, as well as a good chunk of the 30 and 40 sea riders, are just involved in this mess. And yeah, there's really no way of getting out. There's every line blocked, so at this point we just have to wait. Now, I do take off my goggles, and you'll see why that's a mistake here once we get a couple of laps in. But guys are pulling up here, and I see some guys are starting to ride down the motocross track, so I slowly start making my way out. And I don't want to cut the track. I don't know if that's what the other guys are doing, but I creep my way out and just looking around here, and it looks like they're blocking off the hill. I ask, "What are we doing?" And then they just start pointing down the motocross track, so that's where I go. I start following the motocross track, and we are out of the mess. So I make quite a few passes actually, because at this point we've been sitting around for around 4 or 5 minutes, and a lot of guys, actually all the people that you saw in the previous clips, are still stuck on that hill at this point. So I made quite a few passes just by getting down the hill and then getting rerouted. This is towards the end of the first lap here, and this was a really fun part for me. This section was a lot of fun, but also just this part of the race, because we get to some slower riders here. This guy in front of me, he is in the open sea class, so we are having a little bit of a battle right now, but there's some congestion happening. Again, slower riders that were also rerouted, and we're making passes left and right. And let me tell you, whenever I make a pass, it's just a huge confidence booster, and that's kind of what I needed, because my results have been kind of subpar lately for races, and also some smaller turnouts for some of the races, so I haven't had very many people to race with. But today there's definitely been action at every single corner. So a little race strategy here. What I'm trying to do is latch myself on to the guy in the blue and orange gears rear wheel. Again, he's in my class, and I want to try and make the pass on him. Now, I don't know what position I'm in currently, but I do know that we made quite a few passes based on how many people were stuck on that hill. So I know we're somewhere towards the front of the pack, and I want to try and maintain that for as long as possible. So we come out to this open section here, and we make a crossing on the log, do a few S-turns here, and then we finish up lap 1. So lap 1 was my worst lap, obviously, with the whole bottleneck situation. And I put in a 15:29, and I'm in 10th place, so dead center of the pack. You saw I just made one pass there, so still getting around a few people, but things are starting to get strung out here going into the second lap. People are starting to make their pace and spread themselves out, so not really too much more happens on lap 2. So this time I put in a much better 10:46, but it looks like I got passed by someone in my class. So right now I'm in 11th. Got around two people there. Those guys were in different classes than OpenSea. I think they were in the 30 plus class. So I did make two passes there, but those guys, they weren't in my class, so it wasn't. I would say it's not beneficial passes, but any pass is beneficial. But it doesn't increase my position for my classes, I guess. What I'm getting to. Long story short, there. So a little later on here, I make another pass. This guy is in my class, or he was in my class. I'm not sure if he crashed, just pulled over to take a small break, or well, whatever. But I do get it past him, and you saw there was a guy in front of me, and I do end up catching him. Um, he opted to go around the log, and I went over this log. It was kind of at an awkward angle. It wasn't a big log, but it was at an angle where if you just tried going over it without being prepared, then you would be thrown into the ground. But I made a pass, and now in the single track section, I made a couple of passes today in the single track section. So that's just showing that the work I put in to practice this is starting to pay off, but I think, need much more practice here. I could put a lot more speed forward in this section, but it's still rewarding to know that the work I'm putting in on practice days is paying off. So towards the end of the lap here, I call out there and get around one guy, and then coming up here, I do end up getting around this guy. Once things open up here, he didn't have to pull over for me. I just gave a little gas and made a pass. So still, again, we're 3 laps into the race here, and still making passes. So like I said earlier, any pass is a confidence booster. So it was a really good feeling, and it was really enhancing my riding and giving me the confidence, and kept me pushing myself. So we come in to finish the 3rd lap, and the guy got around me there crossing the log. He actually jumped the log, so that was pretty impressive on his part. But this, unfortunately, was my best lap. I put in a 10:19, and when I looked at the scoreboard, I was actually really excited because it said I was in 9th place. So I'm beating over half the class at this point. And oh gosh, this part. So you'll remember I said I took off my goggles. Never, ever, 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 no matter what you do, take off your goggles during a race. You saw when I stopped falling, there was a tree literally right there. And actually, it almost hit my eye. I did end up getting a black eye from that crash, and the only reason I got a black eye was because I didn't have my goggles on. So, lesson for everybody, no matter what skill level, no matter how in shape or out of shape you are, always wear your goggles. They may feel a little uncomfortable, but if my eye would have hit a tree or a root there head on, it would have been horrible, and that would have really sucked. But I got up, I got the bike going again. I was a little shaken up by that crash just because, like I said, my face did get hit and it hurt a little bit. Plus, also, it was a higher speed crash. And I got passed by quite a few people, so now it's time to put my head down and try and make up as many passes as I can. And I do end up getting around 2 people here, so I made up a little ground, but like I said, I think I got passed by probably 10 people, if not more. So I had a lot of work for me to make up all the ground that I lost. So with that lap, I put in a 10:35 going into lap 5 here. So a little bit slower than the previous lap, but I only lost one position from people in my class. So I'm in 10th currently and still just trying to make up any ground I lost and trying to um, stay in the center of the pack because this is one of my goals. I want to beat half the class. So I had that in the back of my head for this entire race, and I was really trying to push myself to achieve that goal and stay in the middle of the pack here. So here I ended up passing 3 people in one section. So again, that gave me a confidence boost, and it felt nice getting around again 3 people in one section. So still making up some ground that I lost, but still a long ways to go. And actually, this lap I put in a 10:38, so a little bit slower, only 3 seconds slower actually than the previous lap. The problem is I lost 2 positions from people in my class, so now I am in 12th. So now we're moving in to lap 6, and things are really starting to get strung out. So not a whole lot happens here. There's a guy that crashed on the hill, and that looks like it would take some effort to get the bike out. But lappers are also coming through. The 60A guys are in this race, so there are some A guys, and they are starting to make their way through. So I got lapped on that downhill, but still wanting to try and get back up to 10th place. My goal for this race was a mid-pack finish, and I really wanted to try and get that done, and I did everything I could to try and achieve that. So coming in to finish up the 6th lap, lap times unfortunately got slower and slower here. This lap I put in a 10:45, which is about the same lap time that I put in for lap 2. I was still in 12th place, so I didn't make up any positions, which I really was trying. Again, I was really trying to get that ground back, and I was putting everything out there, and I think I was just wearing myself out maybe a little too much because based on what I see on the lap times, they don't get much better to be honest. So maybe pushed a little too hard. Maybe even at the beginning of the race I was pushing a little bit too hard and needed to tone it back a little bit so I could pace myself throughout the entire race. Finishing up this next lap here, it was my worst lap of the day aside from the first lap, and I put it in 11:06. So the wear and tear and the fatigue is starting to catch up here. Finish up the race. Say hi to Wardy. He's the guy who puts on these races at Fox Valley Off Road and does an awesome job. And he is a great advocate for District 17. So always try and say hi to him when I go past him. I guess it's just habit, but we come in here, finish up the final lap, and I heard this guy coming up behind me, and I was trying to get out in front of him, just wanted to beat him to the line since the checkered flag's out. So what's the harm in a little bit of racing? But he got around me, and I finished up the race. So lap 8, I sped up by about 20 seconds, and I put in a 10:42. So I finished 12th out of 20, and you guys can hear with my lap times that I was kind of all over the place. And ideally, with the lap times, you want them to get faster and faster with each lap because you should be looking for newer lines to speed up the lap, and also you should just know what's coming, so ideally you'd get faster. Unfortunately, that's not how it worked out, but even with this finish, I had an awesome time. I was battling with people throughout the entire race and was making passes even towards the very end. So this was a very good day, and actually I'm pretty happy with the result, but still a lot of work to do moving forward. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.